All right, let's just start out with a disclaimer here. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on how to modify rapid strikes. That is not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is for those of you watching this who have very minimal experience with soldering, rewiring, connectors, etc., etc., etc. This is something that I did like way back in 2012, which was the fastest, quickest, and dirtiest way I could get rechargeable batteries into a rapid strike rather than using disposable C-cell batteries. So it all lies in the battery tray. So coming out of the factory, we got the battery tray here, C-cell batteries. Problem is you run the batteries out pretty quickly, you recharge, or you don't recharge them. You throw them out and then you get new batteries. And it's a lot of waste, and it also costs money. Hey, it costs money to keep buying C-cell batteries. You can replace that by simply wiring in leads to the battery tray using rechargeable cells. All right, so just a couple of caveats here. First of all, this was done in 2012. The gauge wiring here is insufficient. This is like 20 or 22 gauge. You probably want to be using at least 18 gauge wiring, but the negative is going to go to the negative terminal. Positive wire is going to go to the positive terminal. You probably don't want to be using a JST connector because this is for electronics that use low current draw. All right, not for the motors that you have in the blasters. 2, these batteries are for flashlights and lightsabers, which are flashlights. Okay, so you don't want to be using lithium-ion batteries like this because the amount of current that they produce or provide is not sufficient for motors. You're going to be overdrawing them, and it creates a potential unsafe operating condition, fire hazard at worst. Number 3, you do not want to be wiring or soldering your wires directly to the batteries. The problem is when you use the soldering iron, it creates heat. When it creates heat, it can create another fire, unsafe, whatever condition when you are trying to solder wires to the tops of batteries. So don't do this. Get a 18650 battery tray for 2 batteries. You can print one out on Thingiverse, or you can buy them from various electronic suppliers. It's a very common thing. Whatever connector it is that you're using, it's just going to be a 2-part connector. All right. And the other thing too is if you're using the battery tray, then it means you're going to be able to recharge your 18650 cells. Use IMRs, IMR cells. Again, I can't stress that enough. Do not use lithium-ion cells. They are not made for motors. Use IMR batteries if you're going to do this mod. It will allow you to charge the batteries up individually as opposed to this. I can show you how this worked originally as designed. And again, this is like 6-year-old work. So this is not current. This is not anything. I don't even think it was something new back then. But it was just done with parts that I had on hand, and it was done for expediency's sake, and hey, it worked. So what we have here is our pair of 18650 batteries, which is providing 7.4 volts, 8.4 volts when it's fully recharged, and it's connected to the tray. So you slide the thing into the tray, it's providing power. When I want to recharge this, all I have to do is, since I have a 2.1 millimeter charge port plugged into there, I don't even have to take the battery tray out. So all I do is I take the 7.4 volt, 1.5 amp charger, plug it into the wall, plug that into the front of the blaster, bing, bang, boom. When the light changes, it's ready to go. You can do a quick little voltmeter check using your 2.1 connector, and it'll tell you that ding, okay? Right now your voltage is at 8.15. Same port as the charge port. That's what these recharge ports are for. You don't have to do it like that. You can plug the batteries directly into the plug, which is connected to the battery tray. All right, so when you put that in there, and you can see that this is a 100% stock Rapid Strike. In fact, it hasn't even been cracked open. All of the locks are in place, so it doesn't rev until you put a magazine in there. All right. You can see that this lock is in place. Did you hear that? The motor stopped. It's because it's motor braking. See? All right. This is what the rev up rate is like on 18650s lithium ions. Again, not lithium. What is the manganese, the IMR chemistry. It definitely spins up faster than stock. And the interesting thing about the Rapid Strike circuit is when you engage the pusher motor, it provides a little additional current to the motors, which allows them to spool it faster. And I think the reason why they did that was to prevent voltage sag. So when you have the third motor engaged, it is drawing a little more current away from these motors here. But the way that they did the circuit in here, it actually kicks up a little more current to the motors, so you hear them spool up a little bit faster as soon as the pusher is engaged, which is kind of cool. And if you do the charge port thing again, you never have to unscrew the blaster, just plug in directly. But this is not a tutorial on how to do charge ports. There are plenty of tutorials out there for that. This is just to show you the easiest way of getting rechargeable batteries into a stock, bone stock, off-the-shelf, unopened Rapid Strike. And that means that you don't have to do micro switches, you don't have to redo the wiring loom, not replacing the motors, not replacing anything. This is the absolute simplest way of modifying a Rapid Strike to use rechargeable batteries, lithium chemistry. It's robust enough. I've done this with a couple of them back from 2012. Never had a problem with them. And again, it cuts down on battery waste, and it cuts down on everything else that rechargeable cells provide. In terms of performance, it gives you quite a bit of a spike. You can hear that the motors are spooling up faster. So on a full charge at 8.4 volts, it gives you about 100 feet per second average. And I believe the rate of fire, which is normally like 3 to 4 shots stock on alkaline batteries, was closer to 6 to 7. So it should still be a little bit faster than a Hyperfire running off of alkaline batteries. But nothing particularly impressive. It's just mostly it's a voltage bump. And that is pretty much that. Pay attention to all the caveats. Do not solder your wires directly to the batteries. That's dangerous. Do not use lithium-ion batteries. They are insufficient for motors. Do not use light gauge wiring like this, which is what the JST connectors come with. This is either 20 or 22 gauge. I think it's 22 gauge. You want to use at least 18 gauge wiring. If you want to do the recharge port thing in, that's kind of cool and all, but it's not necessary. It's more of a convenience factor than anything else. And again, all you have to do is solder those connectors directly into the battery terminals, and you're pretty much good to go. Now, if you're putting thousands of darts through this blaster, I can't tell you how that's going to last, but if you're doing light use, play use, talking hundreds of shots or whatever, then again, like I said, I never had problems, and that was with these batteries, which are from 2012. So these are 6-year-old batteries, and they are still doing their same business that they were doing 6 years ago, 5 years ago.